This is today's focus is this concept of being full of yourself, and I'm gonna have some fun with this. Um, I don't know if you're like me, but I was brought up thinking that being full of yourself was a negative thing. There you go. Steven just put up his Substack, and we're going to be able to either click on it or not and enjoy it. You might come across somebody. Bear says, "I'm not everyone's cup of tea." Well, if you go back to one of our previous episodes, it takes a lot of courage to not be for everyone and be anyway. So you go on being. I love that. I love just putting myself out there, acknowledging, just like you just said, that I might not be for everyone. Of course you're not for everyone. And I don't think the goal in life is to be for everyone. It's more to just be. And your tribe will be attracted to your vibe. I think the only thing that we can do to salt the oats of the tribe, you could lead the tribe to water, but you can't make them drink, can't make them read your Substack. Um, but you can salt their oats by just being authentic, not trying to be the best. So I just love it. Lori says she's just full of fun. I agree with that. So let's get into this. So this is going to be all cleaned up and shorter for the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. I invite you all to follow that. It's really just a phenomenon, just coming from a humble place. I did take it seriously, and I started this podcast, but it's turning into a thing. I mean, we're comfortably over 200,000 downloads a month, and it's international, primarily in the United States. But apparently, people like to entertain the world from a different perspective other than the one that they've been conditioned to do. So that's what these mornings are about. This is live, but we're also recording in the studio. So we will clean this up, shorten it up, and it will be an episode in the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. So therefore, if you're watching this live and you want to interact with me, if it's something relevant, we'll put it in the podcast and we'll highlight you. So let's begin. Enjoy this. This is going to be a Substack accompanied with it as well. Are you full of yourself? Well, maybe you should be. That's the focus today. What if being full of yourself wasn't a flaw, but a way or an avenue towards freedom? What if it meant that you were full of presence, awareness, and untapped potential? There's the shift, because you know what full of yourself typically means to you. Today, we're going to explore a deeper meaning of self awareness, and we're going to bust that myth that you're lacking. We're going to bust the myth that you're lacking and reveal how your true self, and I mean the one that's free from conditioning, is already whole, limitless, and wildly capable. In other ways, we could say it's full. This conversation is going to blend Rupert Spira's teachings, quantum perception, as well as the practical wisdom that you'll find in the Make Sense Academy. A lot of people ask me what I'm reading because I read a lot. And I'll just show you. I'm reading a book right now called The Shining of Being by Rupert Spira. If you don't know him, oh boy. I mean, it's heavy. It's heavy, heavy stuff. So you definitely want to. Yes. So you just said Bear Sage just said chock full of nuts. So I'm going to have a sip of my coffee and I will introduce my coffee is in a House of Dragon cup. A lot of dragon stuff from people. So we're going to be using some of Rupert Spira's teachings along with this concept of quantum perception, which is a heavy duty thing, and the practical wisdom that you'll find in the Make Sense Academy. So if you ever felt like something is missing, then you're like me. What's missing? There's just something missing. Something's off. Well, this episode is going to show you that you already are full. You're not missing anything. You're just feeling that way. You're just sensing it. There's a familiar phrase that typically lands as an insult in humanity, and here it is. He or she is so full of themselves. Would you like to be known as somebody that is full of themselves? When somebody makes a reference, it's almost like an attack that you're full of themselves or you're full of yourself. I'm going to just show you why you might want to say, "Hey, thanks. That's a nice compliment." So we hear that concept of being full of ourselves and we wince. The ego cringes when we do that. And the social mask that we tend to wear straightens and strengthens itself, right? We get into order, say, well, I guess I'm not fitting in right now. I've been exposed. One of the reasons that I used to experience a lot of anxiety when I would speak on stage is I identified later on that I was afraid of being exposed. Exposed of what? Being full of shit. So when we hear that idea, we straighten up, right? We've been taught to be self-centered, not to be self-centered and arrogant. We read that again for the podcast. We've been taught since birth to not be self-centered or arrogant or self-absorbed, right? And perhaps even the idea of being full of yourself could be looked at as narcissistic, right? God forbid somebody acknowledges you as full of yourself and narcissistic. That's going to be something you're going to straighten your mask up and it's going to prompt you to want to fit in. So that's something to take note of. But what if it's not a bad thing to be full of yourself? What if being full of yourself turned into the highest compliment that you could ever receive or pay to yourself in the mirror? What if it becomes the doorway to this awakening or enlightenment or self actualization that you're looking for? So, what we're going to do today is we're going to bust this sucker open. So, this is what I call full of yourself, a love letter to the awareness within. So, we're going to write a love letter to ourselves today. So, enjoy. And because we're live right now, if you guys have any questions or interactions or compliments or nasty things to say, just go right ahead and say it because we're live. And I love to find out what's going on in your minds. And like I said, if something pops up that's relevant and tasty, we'll put it in the podcast and we'll shout you out. So there's this moment that we all have when we're kind of striving for things, you know, and in that moment where we're striving and we're looking for self improvement and we have this desire to validate ourselves, right? All of those things sometimes in this moment just dissolve into silence. So just think about what that means to you. It's like all this stuff that we have, this drive, going forward, always moving towards a place that is not now, right? There's a moment where it just dissolves in silence and we pause. And what do we say in the pause? We say, huh. And people like that. That's a great way to practice cognitive distancing to say, which stands for haven't made up my mind about anything. But we go, huh. You haven't made up your mind when you say, huh. And in that pause, there's no chase, there's no checklist, there's no comparison. There's just you. And the work of Rupert Spira, which is really cool, is he just talks about like when you refer to you, his thing is that that has nothing to do with what you're perceiving. It just has to do with the thing inside that is doing the perceiving. There's no judgment or anything. It's just the awareness. So there's just you in that silence, not the version of you that performs, pleases, or seeks more or less. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what are you looking for more or less of in your life? That's a question that really helps people figure things out rather than just asking what you want more of, which is the typical one. I love that you guys are communicating with one another. Stephen is talking to Lori. We have a wonderful community out there, and life is so much better when we are together. We're better together. So, that idea that we're talking about, the one that is shaped by your parents, teachers, preachers, influencers, trauma, or the applause that you've gotten or seeked your whole life, right? That all the artificial you, we're silencing that. Because in this space, there's just a presence that knows that it's here. We can call it awareness. It typically pops up when you say things like I. When I say I, you're referring to the real you inside. Now, how you perceive things is differently. But there's this moment where it's just you and you. That's what we're talking about here. So Rupert Spira would say that you truly are not a body, not a mind, not a personality, but the open, unchanging field of awareness in which all of those things appear. Does that make sense to you? I'm going to read that again just to see if that lands, because these are the kind of things that are going to change your day if you embrace them. So, Rupert Spira, remember, I'm reading this book. It's a very small book. So, this is like a 1 day thing. The Shining of Being. Rupert Spira says that when you what you are, who you are, is not a body, it's not a mind, it's not a personality. Those are external to who you are. But that open, unchanging field of awareness in which all of those things appear. So you are awareness. That's what he's saying. You don't have consciousness. He says you are consciousness. I love that. I love that. And on this show, on our podcast and in these lives, we don't like pick any side. I love to say I haven't made my mind up about anything yet. I do set boundaries and things like that, but I haven't made up my mind about things. I'm open and curious. My write protect switch on my SD card is open. Um, it's got a filter from past experience, but it's open. So if anybody has ideas, like a scientist, I'm always curious to hear them. I'm always open to finding out that there's a better idea or way of looking at things than I do. So, and from that view, this phrase of full of yourself becomes quite literal because, and that's the idea here, is to look at this concept of being full of yourself as literally, because when you're full of that self, that true self, that's a good thing because you realize that nothing is lacking. So in that authentic true self, that version of you that is just aware of awareness itself, there's nothing lacking. It's, in fact, it's limitless. And that's a lot of Rupert Spira stuff if you like that. You don't need approval, validation, or more time. Everything is just perfect and pristine. You just are, and what you are is enough, complete and limitless. So let's look at this thing called the lack, right? We're going to look at the lie of lack. This is interesting because most probably you are going to go about your day today as if you're lacking in something. I mean, the very nature of setting a goal and moving towards something would indicate that you need it, right? There's wants, needs, and must-haves in life. So if you're caught up in those things, I mean, I have goals, but I'm also extremely content with that which is happening in the only moment that's actually happening in the now. So let's look at the lie of the lack. So Bear says, truth is a reflection. It its image changes when you change the angle. Absolutely. If you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. Two people look at the same thing and see something differently. Why? Because they're looking at it through their lenses, right? That's why I wear glasses without lenses, because I choose, not the lens. I choose how I look at things. Of course, you're full of yourself. Who else could you be full of? Nicole, that's perfect. I love it. So, the lie of lack. The opposite of being full of yourself is being full of everyone else's expectations. So, let's look at the opposite. So, this means that looking out at the world, this means that you're looking out at the world through a lens that's been smeared with programming. Isn't that a fun way of looking at it? If we look out at the world through a lens that's been smeared by the conditioning and programming of your mother, father, teacher, preacher, society, which is happening all the time, and evolution, the paying forward of mankind, right? Humankind, we'll say to be appropriate. So this means that looking out at the world, you're looking out at the world through a lens that's been smeared with programming through the judgments of others. That's what smeared the lenses. The shadows of your past, the narratives sold by society, culture, and politics. It's forgetting what's looking through the lens in the first place. So that's the space that we're looking at. When we refer to what we're full of in a positive sense, we're thinking about what it is that is looking through the lens, not what's happening as a result of the lens. You're full of yourself, which is perfect. Nothing lacking there. I love that. So, in other words, the lens has been altered from the outside in, but the version of you that's actually gazing upon the world through that lens is perfect as it is. Can you see that? So, you have to separate from participating with it emotionally and just observe it. Can you see that version of you that is doing the seeing behind the lens? That's what we're full of, and it's perfect. So, when you're full of yourself, you become filled with noise. Oh, I'm sorry. When you're not full of yourself, this is what's fun about live. When you're not full of yourself, in the sense that we're talking about, what are you full of? When you're full of you know what, right? That's what I think what we're really saying in the negative way when we say that person's full of themselves. We're saying they're full of shit, right? So when you're not full of yourself, you're filled with noise. When you are full of yourself, you're dialed into the signal that perceives the noise. You're separated from the noise. You're dialed into the signal that which perceives the noise. You're not the noise. You are the perceiver of the noise. Make sense? Hi, nice to meet you. I'm the perceiver of the noise. I have this really fun shirt. I like to wear fun shirts. This is my I'm fine shirt with the gaping wound through the rib cage there. But I have another shirt that says breaking news, I don't care. And it's just a fun way of showing that there's a good chance that what somebody has to say to me unsolicited, meaning I didn't ask, um, I don't care about because it's just noise. So, how are you at identifying and delineating between noise and signal? I have a journal coming out really soon, probably in the next week, that I've used for years and years and years. So I just decided to make one. I've created it myself. That helps you tap into your signal and block out the noise. So be on the lookout for that. So that's why this all this stuff that we're talking about. This is why we've created these two tenets in our Make Sense Academy, and that's our private community where in a very, very affordable way, people can get business coaching, mentorship, headspace, community, collaboration, everything that you're looking for, online courses, everything at a very, very low price because the group in itself is more valuable than the person that created the group. So we make it more attainable. So the first tenet of our community in the Make Sense Academy, it hits so hard in this sense, and it's this: it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. So a lot of people out there doing the do, but saying, I'm not getting any results. So maybe it's not the do, it's the who. So we say it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. Stephen, have a nice day at work. Thanks for stopping by. This ends up as a video recording on Substack if anybody wants to watch the rest of it or share it with somebody that you care about. Thanks. That's too many M's, Stephen. But I get that. You wanted to elicit a sound. It's just three M's. Haven't made up my mind. So it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. And the reason why we use that is because when you're operating from the truth of who you are, and that's unfiltered, unbothered, unchained to anything else, you become a vessel of clarity. Your actions begin to align. This is the value of it. And your relationships deepen. Your creations, the creative process, that genius inside of you, doesn't have any limitations. Your creations begin to carry more weight and make a more lasting impact. So, what are we saying there? It's who you are that determines how well what you do works. So, we're talking about the fact that you might not be the person for the job yet to get the results that you're trying to get. This is why you never stop because things like self-belief, motivation, timing, all those things that we think are precursors to growth, we actually and discipline, these are things that are built along the way. So here's what's interesting about that person, and it might be you that's going to go get it today, that's going to go after some sort of goal. You don't need anything to make that decision. You'll all the things that you think you need to be able to succeed, which you do, you'll build along the way. You'll build along the way. So the things that you try to do finally begin to work when you're in this state because they no longer are things that are compensating from a sense of lack. It's a very cool thing to do is to say, what do I think that I'm lacking? Because remember what we're saying is when you say I, you're just referring to that which is doing the observing, that is aware of things before there's any judgment or labeling, no lack at all. But if you say that I need this, I want this, that's not you. That's not the you that you're full of. That is the you after it's been passed through the lens that you're looking through. Once again, that's why I wear glasses without lenses, because I don't want anyone else dictating what I see. I just want to see it without an opinion. Haven't made up my mind yet. That's cognitive distancing. So this brings a typical scenario into mind where we respond to one another um, when we have eaten food and somebody says, "Would you like some more food?" And we say, "No, thanks, I'm full." So that's kind of a nice way of looking at the idea of what it means to say in a positive way, I'm full. I'm full of myself. Myself needs nothing. There is no lack when it comes to myself. Bear says, in my coaching practice, so we know you were a coach, I teach about rainbow unicorn moments. I love that. Anything rainbow, or anything unicorn, you got me. And apparently that's what unicorns poop out, rainbows, right? So it's about hitting the pause button, Bear says, to give ourselves time to process. Yeah. Bear, you got to listen to my podcast, the whole first 10 episodes in my interface response system. You'll love it. A chance to be cognizant, right, in that space of how we react, conscious and more rational in our decisions, unfiltered, right? A chance to be aware. Delicious. Send me your stuff, Bear. I love it. Wondering if Bear is a man or a woman. Isn't that interesting? Which nowadays doesn't really mean anything. So, what I'm saying here is when you're full of it, you are in the position to be the right person for the job. You're not tethered to the lack because the lack is what creates the judgment of how well you're doing. And are you advancing towards this place that you're trying to go to that doesn't really exist, right? The only thing that exists is the now. He, so he says, love this so far. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody, Bear. I love this so far. Like, I'm worried now that Bear's going to tune in like 5 minutes and go, not so much now. Anyway, thank you for the compliment. So here's the second shift, and all of this stuff will be in a with when I launch the podcast for this, and I'll probably have some of you guys mentioned in that. The podcast will come out on Substack with the manuscript of it. Good idea to create multiple forms of the same thing in your content, by the way. So here's the next twist, courtesy of Rupert Spira again, and some what's called quantum cognition. So here's the other tenet that we use in the Make Sense Academy, and it's a familiar one. I heard it from Wayne Dyer first. When you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at begin to change. What humanity, I think, needs the most is to claim its ability and also permit itself to change the way that it looks at things. Why? Because that would prompt things that we look at to change. So if you woke up this morning and looked out at the world, allowed your computer to boot up the way it was yesterday, and you determined that this was a good or a bad day, you didn't decide on that. You didn't consciously decide on that. Now, if you have a morning structure, I have a morning routine. If anybody wants it, just ask for it. It's just a document that explains from start to finish my morning routines. Fantastic one. You can chop it up and make it your own. But I take control of my reality by deciding the way that I look at things. And some people say, oh, well, that's naive. It's not reality. So it says who? Says who? It's no more of an illusion for me to decide what I see than to see what I see and think that I know what I'm talking about. They're both illusions. It's a game. So it's not a metaphor when you change the way you look at things, things you look at change. It's actually a metaphysical fact, right? And we know this. We can test it. When two people look at the same thing, as I said before, but see it differently, that thing becomes different to both of them. Isn't it interesting to note that how you see things, how you see the world is unique to you, nobody else? So this is a wake-up call to check your lenses or, like me, remove them. I don't check my lenses anymore. I remove them. Now I still have to check the lenses of the eyes, right? Because they've been conditioned in many ways. But check your lenses rather than saying check yourself before you wreck yourself. Just check your lenses. Become aware of the skewed, potentially smeared by the outside in world and mother, father, teacher, preacher. Check the lenses because there's a good chance that you're seeing things the way that you've been taught to see things. Your conditioned mind is not a camera. Grab this. Your conditioned mind is not a camera. It's a filter factory. And the moment that you realize that your conditioned mind is having a big say in the way you look at things, like being full of yourself, you can begin to dispute that lens. It seems logical when you realize that there's a good chance that the way you're seeing things has been dictated from the outside in. When you realize that, it validates you disputing the lens rather than blaming the view. Don't hate the view, hate the filter. You know, I always say don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate the view, hate the filter that's created the view. If you don't like the view, go back to check the filter, the lens. Okay. So this opens up a complete new reality, doesn't it? If you're still here. If you're not here, you grabbed onto something that you liked, put it into your own idea, and went back to having the world dictate things for yourself. My diary friend, diary of a relationship coach. We're going to do something together one day. By the way, just so you know, my wife is a sex therapist, mental health therapist, and relationship expert. So we have a lot of discussions about that stuff. So reach out. I sent you a message. So this isn't magic, my friends. It's practical freedom. And it's kind of like a prison break from your conditioned mind. We're gonna break free today, which we can do anytime. You stop chasing experiences to fill you, and you start creating experiences from your fullness. We just gaze upon the world and allow it to unfold just as it is, which is just fine. We don't try to control the view. We just enjoy the view. How are you doing, Dragon? I get that sometimes. And I say, it's all good. It is. It's all good. It's good coffee. You guys coffee fans? So here's my question. Are you full of yourself? At this point, if you've been following along, I hope you are. And that's a good thing. Are you full of yourself? So I say, good. Stay that way. Be full of your breath, be full of your presence, and that stillness inside of you that is just simply aware of things. You're full of it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed. Be full of your laughter, your crazy ideas, your creativity, and be full of that moment that you have right here and right now. Be full of this moment. The whole idea of living in the present moment is recognizing it and embracing it and soaking it all in and being full of it. It's already just passed us by. It now no longer exists. It just keeps passing by. Our life is lived in the middle of the hourglass, not on top or below. So, because this moment is the only thing that you've ever actually had. And here's where it gets even better. So, for those of you that have stayed with me, it gets even better. If you're fortunate enough to have figured out that this body that you have, this meat suit, right, is temporary, have you figured that out? That this conduit for the you inside, this mechanism, your sense making machine, this is temporary. You get to hear the throat clears on the live. And that your awareness, you, is housed in a biological meat suit that's been wired for perception. That's your body, your virtual reality suit. In my book, that's what I call it. Then, for the love of all things sacred, this is my plea to you, take care of that sense making machine. If you don't take care of your body, your virtual reality suit, your sense making machine, well, then you're at a disadvantage because you're going to be struggling all the time and having to dispute and contemplate everything that it perceives that you're just gazing upon because it's unhealthy. And I'm not just talking about weight, right? I'm talking about everything. There's so many things that we can do to provide clarity. So, because the clearer you are, the clearer your vessel, the clearer the view. So, if you want to unsmear your lens, the lens that you have now, well, you can do that by getting healthy. So, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a health transformation coach as well. I do a lot of coaching and things like that. But for what I've been doing for 20 years with a specific protocol that I used 20 years ago, lost a bunch of weight, but also really, really got serious about my health, is I've helped hundreds of thousands of people get healthy. So if that needed to be heard, reach out to me. It's really simple. Anybody can do it and inexpensive as well. Everything you're going to do with me is inexpensive. So remember, the view doesn't change. We change how we view the view. So the sharper your senses, the deeper your experience. So if you enhance your viewing and your lens by taking care of your body, right? You're going to have a longer life and it's going to be a better experience. The stronger your system, the longer your ride. So if you're looking for a long ride, take care of your vessel. So practicing healthy habits is no longer a chore in this space, but a celebration and a statement of gratitude. I love that idea of looking at taking care of my body as an expression or statement of gratitude for receiving it. Isn't that nice? Oh, you like to utilize your virtual reality suit. Yeah, the sense making. God, I can't wait for my book is going to come out in February. It's going to be launched at an event in Chicago that you're all welcome to. Jim Quick is headlining it. David Meltzer, who's the guy that kind of Jerry Maguire was based on, and the CEO of Vayner, and a whole bunch of amazing. We just found out Justin Guarini. Remember that? Remember him from American Idol? He's going to be there, and I'll be there. Obviously, I'm one of the speakers. But I'm also going to launch my book there, and virtual reality suit is a big part of it. So practicing healthy habits is no longer a chore, but a celebration and a statement of gratitude. Wellness is no longer a goal in this space, but a way of saying thank you for the blessing that I have been given. Do you ever thank the universe or whatever it is that you see up there for the vessel that you've been given? And what better way to thank it by taking care of it? And just don't put all this crap in it and bring it to the exercise arena, right? No self sabotage. So, one more thing before you go. So, remember, you're not here to become somebody else. This is key. Or see things through somebody else's lenses. You're not broken and you're not missing anything, right? You have no missing pieces. You're actually full of all the pieces that you need. You got all the right things. You're fully loaded, right? And you're full of yourself. And when you finally allow yourself to be that, be what? You. What you'll do is you'll see how limitless life can be. You become the shot caller and dominant force of your entire life. God, did you have any idea we were going to go this deep into being full of yourself? So I'll leave you with this. What would change today if you just simply stopped trying to improve yourself with the intentions of fitting into a world outside that is accommodating inauthenticity? What would happen if you stopped trying to fit into a world that's accommodating inauthenticity and just started operating from your already whole self? I love that. So, in closing, what possibilities would unfold if you no longer looked out there and asked for permission or approval? That's a power move today. And what if the only thing standing between your current life and your highest potential, should that be something you desire, which you don't need? But what if the only thing standing in the way from an extraordinary life experience, your highest potential, and your dream North Star situation was the belief that something is missing? What if that's what's in the way? It's the belief that something is missing. So my last words are, you're not missing anything. You're full of yourself, and you should be happy about that. So love and appreciate you all. Follow the Rise Up with Dragon, or not. That's my old podcast. That's so funny. Live. Follow the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. Extraordinary what's happening there. We've got amazing guests coming up that are going to blow your mind. Just scholars and viral TED Talk people and just people that a lot of people don't know about, but you will soon. And just remember, if you want to reach out, that's what's so cool about things like Substack. And I let everybody reach out, and I want to meet and talk to people. I will never get to a place where I don't, because that's where I learn the most, is hearing what you guys have to say. And I can't wait to go back and read all of these. Hey, Celia, my Kiwi friend. Um, if you want to get into it and you want to do the work, check out the Make Sense Academy. Just respond to me and say, make sense. You will pay less per month to get business coaching, mentorship, and access to all of my stuff, less per month than you will probably spend today on food. That's how inexpensive my environment is. And you gain access to all of our people. That is an extraordinary thing that I'm creating, and a successful one, because people are shifting. Check out the Make Sense Academy. Just say make sense, follow the podcast, and just remember this. If you learn something today, learning is just another form of distraction in the absence of action. So if you learn something today, a great action step would be to give it away. When we teach, we learn twice. So if you learn something today, give it away. That is how it is going to stay. That's when you take ownership of it, and you take the jacuzzi experience of the time we've spent today together, and you turn it into a pivotal one that changes things forever. So have a nice day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.